Convalescent plasma is being hailed as a potential cure for Covid-19. Recently, US-based Food and Drug Administration approved C plasma as an emergency treatment for Covid. They say it is effective in reducing the severity of the virus. Let's tell you a little bit about the convalescent plasma treatment. The plasma is taken out from the blood of Covid survivors. It contains a high level of antibodies capable of reducing infection. Doctors say that early detection in the disease trajectory can lead to better results. Over 70,000 people have recovered in the US following the treatment. But the possible side effects of Covid-19 convalescent plasma treatment have been a worry. The side effects include allergic reactions, transfusion-associated circulatory overload, and transfusion-transmitted infections. In fact, a study from the Mayo Clinic revealed uncertainty about the treatment's ability to produce results. Several experts, including Anthony Fauci, a member of the White House's coronavirus task force, have expressed reservations about the robustness of blood plasma studies. Although adequate randomized trials remain necessary for its efficacy, the C plasma treatment has emerged as the frontrunner in the absence of a vaccine. New Delhi Bureau, Democracy News Live.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of It Matters. Today we're going to talk about the effectiveness of convalescent plasma treatment, the breakneck battle against coronavirus. The convalescent plasma treatment. And what we're going to try and understand from our panel today is how does this treatment and how is it affecting patients differently? There is a lack of research around it. Some research suggests that yes, it is a potential cure and it could help to the time we await a vaccine. Some say it doesn't work on some patients. It didn't work on Ebola, but the nature of the treatment depends really on the kind of virus. And many have pointed out that this could potentially lead to a problematic phase if there is no scientific backing or research which does allow us to understand how and why is this being taken forward. We have a very interesting panel joining us on the program today. We have Dr. Dheeraj Kaul. He's an American board-certified internal medicine physician with specialization in geriatrics, nephrology, and pain medicine. Also joining us on the program is Dr. Arun Gupta. He is the president of the Delhi Medical Council. Welcome to you both.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me on your show.
Dr. Kaul, do you think the C plasma treatment is a major breakthrough when we talk about COVID-19?
Hi, so I've been involved in the research on COVID since January. So just a brief update on C plasma. So as you know, C plasma, convalescent plasma is basically your blood has cells and a liquid portion of it, which we call plasma. And plasma contains a lot of nutrients, electrolytes, which your body needs for day-to-day activity, your cells. And also it contains immune proteins, which are called antibodies. So these antibodies help you to protect against different infection, virus, bacteria, and so on. So when you have these antibodies made in a person who has been infected with COVID, and approximately 2.5 to 3.5 week window period is the ideal time, give and take 3 weeks have passed, we collect the blood, take out the plasma, which is enriched in antibodies, and give it to the patient who's suffering. So a patient who has recovered becomes a donor to a patient who's suffering. Generally, these patients are not those mildly symptomatic patients, say runny nose, sore throat, a little bit of fever. Those are not the candidate. These are generally hospitalized patients requiring supplemental oxygen, generally in the form of high flow oxygen, OptiFlow, 30-40% FiO2, or even intubated or BiPAP or CPAP, as we are noticing now. So when we give this convalescent plasma, we are basically targeting the antibody response of the person who has recovered, giving it to the patient. And just to let you know, this is not a new breakthrough. It has been around for around 100 years. C plasma was already used in February in South Korea. It was already used in Japan in March, and we started using it in April here, first cases. And now, as you know, more and more patients are getting convalescent plasma. earlier there was a very big demand and supply issue for it. We had very less people who were coming forward, but now the American Red Cross has collected around 165,000 plasma packets. People are coming forward and donating it, and different hospitals have decent amount of pool which is collected. So what is happening now, as you know, this disease travels in phases. So currently New York was in a very, very bad stage 3. So I'm from New York. And people were getting very infected very, very fast because obviously social distancing was not being taken seriously. And unfortunately, folks which are super, super high risk, and I've been on Indian media and international media as well, and emphasizing how important it is to protect the vulnerable people whose immune system is weak, who are immunodeficient, say HIV patient, leukemia patient, cancer patient, their immune system is weak, diabetic patient, hypertensive patient. Believe it or not, around 90% of patients which we have seen had mortality in US were hypertensive. So hypertension is coming out to be a major, major risk factor. And also patients who have lung problem like COPD, asthma, and so on and so forth. And patients and people who are above 65. Why am I bringing this up? Because this was a very targeted patient population in nursing homes where we had very high mortality. If you remember, in US, one of the first mortalities were in Washington state. People who came from cruise, these were older folks. And it suddenly spread in the entire nursing home, and we ended up losing around 25 people there. So now we are getting better at protecting these people, routinely screening. But coming back to your convalescent plasma, so since we have been using it and we are noticing that patients who were intubated, we were able to extubate them. Patients who were on high flow oxygen or even CPAP or BiPAP, we were able to reduce their oxygen requirement and eventually get them discharged. So mortality reduction we had seen in our own setups, but there was not a good standardized double-blinded placebo-controlled trial, which has not been done yet. Because the risk versus benefit, if you look at it, it would be unethical to deprive the patient of convalescent plasma at this stage, people who qualify. Like you named some of the criteria, not everybody is a candidate for convalescent plasma. There is a rule out criteria, and there are a subset of
Right.
patients who don't qualify to get it. So if you qualify to get it, we
Right.
can give it to you. And the latest study which came from Mayo actually just compared two arms, people who got early on and people who got late on convalescent plasma. And we saw the difference in mortality, which was 35% reduction if I give you in first 3 days of symptom onset versus 7 days. It went on to compare to 30 days too, but it's not a placebo controlled arm. You have to understand that is the gold standard of a clinical study. So that's why Dr. Fauci is talking about that we need to have a better quality of study as we get more therapeutic drugs there, because currently there is no standard of care. We cannot be giving placebo. So tocilizumab, there is a lot of trial going on. I'll mention later on in your show. So we are looking forward for that trial.
Right, and Dr. Arun Gupta is also with us on the program. Dr. Gupta, we're talking about the convalescent plasma treatment here in Delhi as well. You've worked very closely with the Delhi government. They set up a plasma bank very recently in the state, which was battling coronavirus and had the highest number of cases recently. But now the situation has sort of calmed down. How do you think convalescent plasma treatment sort of works when it comes to its effectiveness? Do you think that this is a long-term solution?
I think first of all, I must thank you for inviting me. I must understand what your audience. Your audience is general public or doctors only? The video will be watched by general
Well,
public, I suppose.
it's everyone. Yes.
Everybody, okay. Because then I will not be using more the medical jargons. Now, first to understand the plasma therapy is nothing new in medical science. We have been using plasma therapy for so many diseases for so many decades. Nothing new. So theoretically, what Dr. Kohal has already told us that what is plasma? Plasma is a portion of blood. You take out the cells from the blood, and then what liquid remains is a plasma. Now, whenever an infection enters our body has a tendency to produce certain substances which is called antibodies. Now, these antibodies are in the blood of someone who has already been infected with some virus or bacteria. So what is plasma therapy? You take out those antibodies from that person in form of plasma and infuse it to someone who is currently suffering from that infection, hoping and supposing that antibodies will neutralize the viruses or bacteria in that person. So that's how plasma therapy works theoretically. Now, COVID virus is something very new
Right.
virus for all of us in medical science also. So theoretically, we always knew it will work, but up to what extent it will work, we never knew. Now, since this disease was new and this is a new disease, we have been trying so many modalities of treatment. We practically didn't know whether it will work or not, but we knew it will work at least to some certain extent. So we have been trying it now in Delhi. Initially, all over the world, people tried hydroxychloroquine, then remdesivir, then all other medicines. Now people are mainly dependent on oxygen and steroid plus plasma therapy. Now, according to a lot of doctors, including doctors, Dr. Paul was there, the plasma therapy does work, but we are not very sure how much it works. So let us try it when we don't have any other specific modality or any other creditable modality to treat corona. So plasma therapy is one of the, I think, would be a prudent choice to use. Now, once you think about plasma, suddenly there was a lot of clamoring and there were a lot of demand from plasma all over. So that's how we came up with the idea of opening plasma bank in Delhi. Now you see Delhi has almost 1,64,000 patients who have either suffering or recovered from this COVID. So we have a large pool of patients who have already recovered, almost 1,35,000. So we made an appeal to all of those to please come forward and donate plasma so that you will be able to save someone's life. So now we have two plasma banks working in Delhi, and now we have plenty of plasma available. And practically every day, 20 to 30 patients,
Right.
even I am helping out to supply them the plasma.
Right. Yeah. Dr. Arun, let me also ask you, there are certain risks involved with with the convalescent plasma treatment. When are we going to talk about that?
No, like suppose first I am telling you, plasma therapy is not it's a very rare therapy. It's very unknown to us. Practically, it's very safe for both the donor as well as the recipient. But the only thing is that we have to think who are the patient who really require plasma therapy. So there are certain criteria who are the patient who are moderately sick, whose saturation is between 90 to 94, who oxygen demand is increasing in spite of taking steroids. So we have to categorize the patient who might benefit. I'm not saying they are 100% getting benefit, but certainly they are getting benefit, and with time we'll come to know how many patients got benefit from that.
Right. And Dr. Kaul, when we talk about risk, we've talked about the effectiveness. We also need to understand how reliable is this treatment, because there have been concerns. There is a lack of scientific research. That, in fact, there are not many studies as well around this. How reliable is it?
So, very good question. So, first of all, you have to understand, like Doctor was talking about, it's a very new virus. I have written an article over it about etiology and genesis of the virus. There is a school of thought which believes it's a lab synthesized virus. How did it got outside? There are different theories, conspiracy theories. Was it leaked? It was a bioweapon, all those things. So I leave it to the journalists and political area. But there is definitely a certainty of genetic recombination in the virus, which we noted in January. There are certain subtraits of, you can say, genetic material matching to even human immunocompromised HIV virus. So to some extent, not completely. So it looks it's a very strange timing of the virus coming out, because the bat theory doesn't fly. They've been drinking that thing for 2000 years in China. But I'll stop right there. Coming back to your question. So you had asked me how, so around 100 years, more than 100 years, we've been using convalescent plasma. It's a relatively safe treatment option. And you have to understand, when this new virus came, we were basically flying blind. Our immune system is not used to this virus. We have never seen this virus. Human race has never seen this virus. So when it entered our body, it basically started killing our defense cells as well, and started affecting your alveoli, basically damaging your lungs. Your lungs were getting full of fluid. Also, it was making you into respiratory distress. That means you can't breathe. There is no diffusion of oxygen, and eventually person dies of hypoxemia. Other issues it was doing is endothelial damage, which is blood vessel damage. Strokes were being caused in young, healthy, athletic people. We saw patients with myocardial infarction, that means heart attack, because the vessel is clotted. Why? You don't know. Non-smoker, non-diabetic, non-hypertensive comes into the hospital, our hospital with an MI. We go to the cath lab, COVID positive. Now you have to desensitize. So these were big, big challenges. Other issues, we had ladies who had abortions out of nowhere. We had young kids who are coming with blue toes. We are thinking it's Kawasaki. It's not Kawasaki. It's an endothelial damage. Each and every cell of your blood, each and every cell of your body needs oxygen and nutrition. Your blood vessels are the ones which are like highways to take it there. Once the highway gets blocked, the cells or the tissues will start dying. So it was diffusely affecting your body, and it was so presenting in so unique ways. We were so surprised. People coming with seizures out of nowhere. So obviously, people who have endovascular damage, that means their blood vessels are damaged from diabetes, high blood pressure, smoking was a big factor, alcohol. So these things, the patients were more prone. Now, why is your question very important? Because when we were seeing this virus, we had no tools whatsoever. Initially, if you guys remember, we were basically giving um, oxygen, supportive care, paracetamol. What else we were giving? Some people were giving NSAIDs. We actually tried talking our hospital system to start giving stress dose steroids, but it was rejected because in a viral infection, you can actually do more damage in certain cases by giving steroids on people who are very, very sick. So our hands were tied. One of the therapies which we thought is, what about people who have recovered? Have they generated antibodies? And gladly they had. So why can't we infuse those antibodies? So that was a chain of thought, and we started using it, and we saw very, very good responses. So that was point number one. Point number two, at later on in May, more and more data came from Asia, actually, Japan and South Korea, and eventually Italy, that steroids, when given in high doses, could suppress the inflammation. I spoke about this topic in end of March in Vion TV, and actually in another Indian channel in beginning of April, because I do this research about we can target certain biochemicals which are called interleukin, especially interleukin 6, interleukin 2, tocilizumab. There are many other drugs which have been developed, right? But at the time when convalescent plasma was kicking in, our hands were tied. We had very, very little resources. Matter of fact, we were not even using steroids to that extent. So now we have steroids. Now we have tocilizumab, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin combination was used earlier. In US also we were propagating it, but later on we recognize it's doing more harm than good. So we have taken a step back, especially on patients who have cardiac heart risk factors. So again, there are so many drugs in pipeline. I will talk about them later on in your show. But now we have more variation. So that's why your questions become important. Now we can talk which patients will be benefited most,
Right.
not
Right.
little
That is
bit, most
exactly
from
what my,
convalescent plasma.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. That is exactly what I was getting to, Dr. Paul. So, Dr. Arun, here is where the gray area is. Most patients or family members of the patient either are helpless that, plasma is not available from one of the affected COVID patients, previous now cured, of course. But is it necessary that every recovered COVID patient can be a donor?
No, like first I'm telling you what your original question was, whether it's effective or not. I will, as I told earlier, also, like, this is a new virus, a new disease. Practically, doctors are also struggling to find a effective therapy, effective and creditable therapy. So things keep on coming. We keep on learning also. So I'm not saying it is 100% effective, but it may be effective in some of the patients. Number two, now there's sudden clamoring of plasma. Everybody is demanding plasma. So we had a situation in Delhi about 1 month back, when suddenly this plasma came into picture. Now that's why the Arvind Kejriwal, the CM, appealed to all the people who are recovered from COVID to please come forward and donate. Now we have two plasma blank in Delhi working 24 hours a day, and we have sufficient number of plasma available. So anybody needing in Delhi, plasma is not an issue. Even practically every day, 20 to 30 patients I am helping personally. We have a dedicated line for that. That is 1031. Anyone can call that, and we have our website also. You can go there. You just register with all the required documents, and you have to have a requisition from your doctor. Plasma availability in Delhi
Right.
is easily available, no issue about that.
Right. But Dr. Arun, my question is, can if every recovered COVID patient donate?
Okay.
This is an important thing which
No,
we have to understand. So how do you
That,
decide? How do you
yes, that,
exactly decide which recovered COVID patient can donate
yes.
plasma and cannot donate plasma? Do we
Yeah,
have the mechanism available to be able
there,
to determine that this X patient or Y patient can donate plasma?
there are two part of that. One is what are the clinical criteria to qualify someone whether he can donate or not. Like the criteria number one, he has to have a positive COVID report. He must have at least 14 days after recovering from the symptoms. His age has to be between 18 and 60 years. He should not be suffering from any. He should be on diabetes. He should not be hypertensive, and he should not be suffering a patient of cancer, and he should not be a lady who has ever been pregnant. Here are certain criteria to become a donor. Now, once a donor comes to our laboratory, we do the blood test to see whether this patient has sufficient number of antibodies or not. So, as far as so far our studies say, almost 85% people who have recovered from the COVID have sufficient number of antibodies so that they can be good donors. 15% people, unfortunately, have the quantity of antibodies are not good enough to become a donor. So, these are the certain criteria how we decide whether a patient can donate or not.
Right, right. And Dr. Call, we've established that there has to be a certain criteria or in so to say clinical trials in trying to determine as to who can become a donor or not. Um, but my problem here is that, is plasma therapy the only option? I mean, we have so many medicines and so many other medications available. Why has this come out as something which is more effective than others?
Okay, so let me go back. So my first interview, I spoke about this, and I'll take a minute so that you understand the whole picture. So the current data shows to us that coronavirus in the society, when it gets spread, before we talk about herd immunity, has to affect 70 to 65% of population. What does that mean? India with 135 billion people, if India has a billion people getting coronavirus infection, India will have herd immunity. That means the virus will eventually go away. Our race is against time to get a cure or a vaccine of coronavirus, right? So now coming back to the question you were asking, what, why it is the only therapy? Is that what you're asking, right? If I'm understanding you right?
Yeah, perhaps perhaps because there's an absence of vaccine right now, and there are definitely ways of production for plasma therapy. So, with the FDA giving permission for plasma treatment as an emergency therapy, it does raise questions. Everything's not black and white, is it?
So I think your voice was cutting. Were you asking about vaccine?
Let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this. Do you think that plasma therapy is one of the best options right now in the absence of a vaccine?
Okay, so let's clarify one thing. There is something called preventative medicine and there is something called curative medicine. So preventative medicine means you don't get the disease. So that is vaccine. I give you vaccine, you don't get that. The whole purpose of vaccine is to introduce the viral particle in your body so that your own body starts making antibodies, and when the real virus with the bad factors come in, it is ready to fight. That is called vaccination. We've been doing this since when a baby is born, we give them different vaccinations, rubella, mumps, measles, and so on and so forth. Depending on how strong your response is, a vaccine can last. For example, tetanus lasts 10 years. Mumps will last forever till like late 70s. So coming back to this point, so the vaccine is a preventative, and what if you get coronavirus infection? Then the vaccine is not a candidate for you. You won't vaccine would be no good to you. Then I have to treat you. So that's what I was telling. Once the 70 per, so when you get coronavirus infection, entire population 60 to 70% will get infected before the herd immunity kicks in. People who get infected, 80% will have very very mild symptoms. 20% people would be symptomatic. That
Hmm.
means they will need
Hmm.
hospital care. 20% people, out of those 20% people will need a little bit of oxygen. 5% to 3% will end up in ICU. So who are we targeting? We are targeting people who are on high dose of oxygen or needing hospitalization. If you are at home, you don't need any medicine. Your own immune system will get used to it, make antibodies, and keep it there. Unless you have comorbid condition, your risk is higher. If you're an unlucky person without risk, we have seen complication, right? Now let's go back to
Right.
medicine. So a very small subset of people who get infected with corona will need medical care. Rest of them will get over like a common flu, maybe sore throat, cough, runny nose, have to isolate at home, drink fluids, take vitamin C, just have a healthy lifestyle, and it will go away. Breathing exercise. People who are hospitalized, what are the medicine we are giving to them now? Now let's come to that. If I was taking the same interview in April, I would not talk about steroids. But now steroid has become a front runner in the battle. What does steroid do? It immediately blocks the inflammatory cascade, inflammation. Inflammation is a response to any foreign object in the body, virus, bacteria, any inflammatory thing. Whenever you have inflammation, a lot of chemicals are released. Those chemicals are there to trigger your own immune system. And most of the times what we are seeing with coronavirus, it's hyper triggering. We are seeing something called hyper response, almost like allergy. It goes uncontrolled
Right.
immune damage throughout the body. So steroid calms it down. That's point one. Point two, a lot of people who are coming in hospital, when we give them oxygen delivery in the lungs is little better. We give them supportive care. We also giving paracetamol. And now we have, by the way, we have stopped giving hydroxychloroquine because of adverse effects we saw here. So very rarely we are using. Earlier we were using hydroxychloroquine with azithromycin combination. We are using tocilizumab, which is basically an interleukin 6 inhibitor. And then we are also using different HIV antiviral drugs. There are different protocols we are trying here in different hospitals and seeing how one responds. Now, another thing which we are doing right now, like you said, convalescent plasma, it's a modality. Why? It's a treatment. We are taking antibodies and giving it to you, right? There's another thing which is going on now, in which is called plasmapheresis experimental, in which it's not a routine treatment, but in NYU and Mount Sinai, they're trying to see if we can remove these interleukins through a filter from your body so that the damage is minimized. And there are a lot of drugs which are in pipeline, which I can mention eventually to you, which have been developed. Matter of fact, there are two companies which are actually synthesizing genetically modified antibodies in the lab. One of the companies' name is Sorrento, SRNE is the ticker. Another company's name is Regeneron. Both of these companies are making lab synthesized antibodies. And it's very important for us to know that these antibodies will target a virus, identifying a particle or a subset of protein on the virus surface or a nucleus or whatever. So there are so many types of expression of the virus. So Sorrento is a drug which is lab synthesized antibody, can identify 20 different changes in the virus. Regeneron can identify up to 60 to 80. So Regeneron will be much more expensive. These drugs are in pipeline. So if we don't have a convalescent plasma, I can give it to you. So this will take care of it.
Right.
And eventually in your show,
Right.
we'll talk about mutation of the virus, which changes the whole
Right.
picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, slightly running short of time, Dr. Kaul. Certainly, we would take that up as well. Dr. Arun, now that plasma banks have been set up in Delhi, would you like to tell people who are perhaps seeking help right now? There are many people still affected, family members still troubled.
Yes.
Would you like to give out a message to them as to how they should go about it? How should they take care of their family members? What is the process of getting plasma from recovered COVID patients?
First of all, I would like, going back to your question which you asked for Dr. Paul, plasma therapy is not the only therapy, I would like to say. It's not the only therapy. It is not the therapy for the COVID. So please, this is my message to all the people. Don't start running for plasma here and there. If only plasma मिल गया तो बच गया, नहीं मिला तो मर गया, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. It has to be decided by your doctor only whether your patient requires plasma or not. Number one, it's very very important. Don't think because plasma नहीं मिलेगा तो पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. Number one. Number two, if you want plasma, please try to find someone to donate the plasma. The plasma is something which are not manufactured in factory or somewhere. Someone gives the plasma, so when someone gets the plasma. So please try to find us some people who who has suffered from the COVID who can donate. That's why we get the plasma in our plasma bank. Number 3, we have a helpline. This is 1031. Please do call at that helpline. Our team is there, team of volunteers there. They will guide you to how to get plasma. And we have a website called Delhi Fights Corona. Delhi Fights Corona. You go there. There's a form to be filled. If you require plasma, please fill that form. There is a Google form. It will directly come to my team. They will see the form, and we'll try to. In case you have donors, well and good. If you don't have a donor, we have a list of volunteers who have suffered from corona, have recovered. They are willing to donate, so we can also help to a certain extent get donor for you, because one donor plasma can be used in 2 persons. So we have sufficient number of donors right now available in this. In Delhi, at least I can say there's no issue of getting plasma. If you have a donor, well and good. If you don't have donor, please come fill the form. Contact us. We'll arrange plasma for you.
Right. Thank you there, Dr. Arun. Dr. Kaul, I'm sorry we're running out of time, but you have anything to add? Please go ahead.
I think Dr. Gupta just mentioned that's very, very important for people to understand there are different therapies. And I think Dr. Gupta deserves applaud for organizing Plasma Donor Bank. I've been following Indian media very closely. Delhi has done a very, very good job. With all the challenges, I mean, it's not New York. With all the challenges, limited resources, I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I think more awareness needs to be spread in people. There is an issue. Please understand there is such a thing we are identifying called COVID fatigue, when people lower down their ability to fight and they get, they just give up on mass social distancing, which is very, very dangerous. There is a high prevalence of suicide. There is a high prevalence of depression and anxiety disorder. So we have issued a helpline number here. And I hope, and I'm sure Delhi is working on those lines. That's a very, very, mental health is a big, big factor which we have seen exacerbated during the COVID times. So that should not be ignored as well.
We have a mental,
right.
We have
Thank you, Dr. Kaul.
Mental support for both for the public as well the healthcare workers. We have tied with ABAS. We have a 24-hour working helpline to help not only people, healthcare workers as well, doctors as well.
Very good.
Right,
very good.
Right. Great work there, Dr. Arun and Dr. Kaul. Thank you for explaining to our viewers also simply as to how the COVID plasma, convalescent plasma treatment therapy really works around. And thank you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.